It sits on the wrists of construction workers mixing cement, college students typing essays, and even luxury collectors who own mechanical pieces worth thousands of dollars. Look closely at the highest levels of global power, and you will find it on the wrist of former U.S. President Barack Obama. But it was also the watch of choice for Osama bin Laden. This chart illustrates the sheer scale of its production. Casio churns out 3 million units every single year. Since its launch in 1989, over 100 million have been sold, all without a single change to the original design. Physically, it weighs just 21 grams. It is constructed from basic plastic resin, and you can buy a brand new one right now for about $15. To understand how a $15 piece of plastic dominated the globe, we have to look at the unlikely way it was invented, the microscopic engineering hidden inside its case, and the dark consequences of its perfect reliability. Casio's story does not begin with horology. It starts with a small mechanical finger ring designed to let Japanese laborers smoke cigarettes hands-free, down to the very last drag. The profits from that simple ring allowed Casio to pivot entirely, funding their entry into the rapidly growing market of electronic calculators. By 1974, they took that calculator technology, shrank the integrated circuits down, and placed them on the wrist. They called it the Casiotron. Over a decade of refinement led to a new assignment for designer Ryusuke Moriai. In 1989, his mandate was strict: build a highly cost-effective, perfectly flat digital watch. At the time, Casio maintained an intense corporate culture. They required every new employee to complete a 10-day military training camp to instill discipline and survival skills before they ever sat at a desk. That demanding environment directly influenced Moriai's approach. He engineered a Semillion watch equipped with the extreme durability and efficiency of a combat tool. To keep costs low on the assembly line, Casio skipped standard spring bars. Instead, they attached the resin strap directly to the case using solid compression pins, drastically speeding up production. Going inside the case, we find the real engine, Casio's highly efficient quartz module 593. If you look at the printed circuit board, there are tiny physical trim jumpers. Factory workers would cut or bridge these solder connections to calibrate the exact frequency of the quartz crystal. This manual adjustment means a cheap watch often hits an accuracy of plus or minus 6 seconds per month. This graph shows the module's power consumption. By restricting the daily power budget to just 20 seconds of alarm sound and 1 second of light, the steady, near-zero energy draw allows a single coin cell to run the watch continuously for over a decade. Reaching that battery life meant accepting specific limitations. The calendar does not automatically calculate leap years, and the backlight is notoriously weak, relying on a single green diode that barely illuminates the left side of the screen. These are calculated horological compromises. Casio prioritized long-term autonomy and affordability over unnecessary features. The official spec sheet labels the F-91W as merely splash-proof, technically suitable only for light rain. In practice, the tight resin case tolerances make it practically indestructible in water. Hobbyists push these limits even further through a process called hydromodding. By completely filling the interior cavity of the watch with a non-compressible fluid like mineral oil, the internal pressure equalizes with the outside environment. Once modified, a $15 watch strapped to a deep-sea submersible survived and kept perfect time at nearly 5,000 meters below sea level. This massive popularity naturally bred a sprawling counterfeit market. Fakes are so common that Casio built in a hidden diagnostic test. Holding down the bottom right button reveals the word Casio to verify authenticity. The cheap, over-engineered ruggedness that endeared the watch to millions of normal people is exactly the same trait that eventually caught the attention of international terror networks. For paramilitary groups in the early 2000s, the F-91W offered unmatched global availability and predictable electronic behavior, making it an ideal standard component for improvised explosive devices. This diagram shows how the watch was weaponized. Bomb makers bypassed the internal speaker, soldering copper leads directly to the alarm contacts. When the countdown reached 0, the current triggered external detonators instead of a simple beep. This method was adopted by high-profile operatives like Al-Qaeda bomb designer Ramzi Youssef, who used the watch's timing circuit in the 1994 Manila air plot. 5 years later, operatives integrated the watch into 4 separate explosive rigs intended for Los Angeles International Airport during the thwarted Millennium Plot. By the height of the War on Terror, U.S. military intelligence officially listed possession of an F-91W as a primary indicator of explosives training during threat assessments at the Guantanamo Bay detention camp. But intelligence agencies eventually had to abandon this profiling protocol. The watch was simply too ubiquitous. Millions of innocent civilians, and even the Allied soldiers conducting the interrogations, were wearing the exact same piece of plastic. At its core, the F-91W is the ultimate honest object. In an industry obsessed with planned obsolescence and luxury status, Casio engineered a democratic tool that tells the truth, survives extreme conditions, and serves whoever wears it simply because it refuses to fail.